Michelle Menke here with GatorCountry.com. This weekend's matchup is against Alabama. The game will be at 8 p.m. on CBS. I'm here with Thomas Goldkamp and Adam Pincus here to discuss this weekend's game. Thomas, what do you expect to see when the Gators get the ball in the offense?
Well, Michelle, I expect to see a lot of the same things that we've seen from Florida this year. I do think that Florida will mix it up a little bit this week in terms of how they get Chris Rainey and Jeff Demps the ball. Florida has really tried to attack in the flats with them. I expect Charlie Weiss to mix it up a little bit with them, maybe get them going on a couple drag routes here and there. And I expect that John Brantley will attack the Alabama secondary a little bit more.
Adam, what do you think?
Well, I think that Alabama is really going to key in on Jeff Demps and Chris Rainey. And that being said, I think they're going to move more towards the zone defense to make sure that Demps and Rainey are in front of them. Because as we all know, when Demps and Rainey get behind the defense, that usually means a Florida touchdown.
Next up, we'll talk about Florida's defense. Adam, what do you expect to see?
Well, I expect the Gators to come with maybe a little more blitzes, possibly from the linebackers. Were very successful last week against Kentucky on the linebacker blitz. They had 4 sacks against the Wildcats. I really think, A.J. McCarron, the Alabama starting quarterback, it's his first real tough road test in the SEC at the Swamp. Gators are going to go after him and try to, get the ball out of his hands.
Thomas, what about you?
Well, I think Adam's right on right there with Florida trying to get McCarron out of sync. I do think the thing that Florida has to be careful with is going after McCarron a little too much and leaving themselves vulnerable to the screen pass, which is an area Alabama's really had a lot of success with. They had a long touchdown pass to Trent Richardson last week off the screen, and Alabama's had a lot of success against Florida the last 2 years with the dump-off passes to the tight end and the receivers. So that's something, I think you're going to see Florida kind of scheme against a little bit. They've been talking all week about how they're going to be patient against the screen. And that, to me, is the aspect that will really make or break the game on Florida for defense.
Now we'll talk about keys to the game for this Saturday. Adam, what do you think needs to happen for the Gators to win this football game?
Well, the Gators need to outgain Alabama on the ground. Last season, the Crimson Tide, in their 9 victories, they outrushed 5 of their opponents. And in their 3 losses last year, Alabama was substantially outgained on the ground. And that's what needs to happen in order for the Gators to win. Demps, Rainey, and Gillisley have to get off and really take over this ball game. On the flip note, both teams have not, had really too much experience from falling from behind. And what team is going to respond well from adversity? Because this is a big, SEC game. Which team's going to, step it up when they're down, 2 touchdowns?
Thomas, what do you think?
Well, Michelle, I'll be looking at 2 keys to the game. The first, I think, is Florida's use of the tight end. The Gators should get Jordan Reed back this week. He's been out for the last 2 games with a hamstring injury. And he's a guy that head coach Will Muschamp really feels like can stretch the field vertically. And with Alabama likely to key off on Chris Rainey and Jeff Demps, if Reed and Gerald Christian, who had a big game against Kentucky last week, if they can get down the field and stretch the Alabama defense a little bit, that'll open up a lot for the running game. The other key I look at is turnovers. Matt Elam said today that he thinks whoever wins the turnover battle wins this game, and I tend to agree with him. Florida has done a good job of improving each game and forcing takeaways, and it's something that defensive coordinator Dan Quinn and a lot of the guys on defense have pointed to this week as something that could really be the turning point in the game.
Next up, we'll talk about the coaching matchup. Nick Saban and Will Muschamp have a long history together. Thomas, what do you expect to see this Saturday?
Well, I think because of the fact that both coaches have worked together for so much, both at LSU and Miami, they share a lot of the same defensive concepts. And what I mean by that is both coaches will look to disguise the blitz defensively to really create some confusion up front for the offense. And then they'll both use multiple fronts defensively, switching between the 3-4 and the 4-3. And what that does is they do that with the same personnel, so it makes it very tough for the offense to substitute the players in that they want. One thing that was really interesting to me during the week was that offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss told us that he's been picking Will Muschamp's brain throughout the week as to what to expect from Nick Saban's defense. So it'll be interesting to see if Weiss comes up with some creative ways to beat Alabama.
Adam, what do you expect to see?
Well, Michelle, both offenses are remarkably similar. They utilize the running backs really well, throwing the ball into the flats. Both offenses have, game-managing quarterbacks, A.J. McCarron of Alabama and John Brantley of Florida. And I think the key to this game is what team will be able to be the most creative on offense. Both teams are very similar. Which team is going to go jump outside of the box and really do something different in this game? Charlie Weiss said yesterday, the offensive coordinator for the Gators, he said they're going to bring the kitchen sink to Alabama. And I think that was a very interesting thing for him to say.
Next up, we'll talk about predictions for the game. Thomas, what do you expect?
Well, Michelle, even though Florida has had some extensive changes with their scheme and some personnel changes, I still see this game shaping out a lot like the last two. I just think Alabama has too few questions on defense and enough playmakers on offense that they're going to be able to put up some points on the Gators. I see Alabama kind of grinding Florida down in the fourth quarter like they've done in the last two games, and in the end I think they pull it out by at least 10 points.
Adam, do you agree with this prediction?
Thomas, I disagree. I think the Gators do pull it out. 24-21 victory, maybe a Caleb Sturgis last-second field goal. But what really is on the Gators' side is they are at home, and their defensive line has substantially improved. And I think, towards the fourth quarter, the Gators will be able to deal with the two-headed monster that is Trent Richardson and Eddie Lacy.
For GatorCountry.com, I'm Michelle Menke with Adam Pincus and Thomas Goldkamp. Remember to stay tuned to GatorCountry.com this entire week for complete coverage of the game.